Hey guys, it's Diana here, and I am super nervous. Okay, I don't know why the accent, and I don't know what happened, but I really am nervous. I am making the holiday cheer dress, and I'm nervous, but I am excited as well. But I am nervous because I've making it the hardest possible on myself. I'm making it woven. I'm using a new fabric that I've never used before. This satin little number. I'm using tulle. So yes, we're gonna learn together. So I'm excited, and I'm a little bit nervous, but I think we can do it. So I already cut out my pieces, and I have my liner and my outer. Yes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these pieces together. And what I do is first I do my front bodice, and this is my outer piece. But I'm going to do the same exact thing to my liner, which I actually already did, and I put it to the side. So we're doing the exact same thing. And this is my back, the back of my bodice. So we're going to put them together at the shoulders, making sure that the arms align. Where the arm area is, that needs to align. And then we're going to sew it at the shoulders. This is the shoulder seam right there, so we're going to go ahead and pin it right there and sew them together at the shoulders. The front and back of my outer, this is my outer, and then we're going to do the same thing to the liner. So we're putting that together first. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the shoulder seams of this liner, and I'm using my serger, but obviously you can use your sewing machine. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. But I just love my serger, and I use it always. I don't know why. I guess because I learned to sew basically on a serger, so I'm just used to it. Okay, so now that I did this to my bodice, my outer layer of my bodice, I will do the same thing to my inner of my bodice. I did exactly the same thing that I just did to my outer layer. Here's my liner. So after I do that on my liner, on my back bodice of my liner, wrong side up, I went ahead and already attached my interfacing. So there's a little tip on there to make it less bulky. You can take off 1/4 of an inch of both the top and the bottom of the interfacing and leave just a little gap at the top and the bottom. If you can see right there, there's a little bit of gap right there and a little bit of gap right there, just to make it less bulky at the seams. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead and do that, and then go ahead and put your interfacing however it asks you to do it, steam it or whatever. The next step will be to put sew the liner and the outer together. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to set my liner up, and it's going to be face up, so it's right sides up of my liner. And then I'm going to go ahead and let me move back a little bit so you can really see it. I'm going to do the same thing for my outer, and I'm going to put it right on top. So I'm just going to meet it right on top at seams. So I'm meeting it at the shoulder seams right here. And I'm going to pin it right there at the shoulder seams. And I'll pin it right here at this other shoulder seam. And then I'm going to go all the way around the front of the neck, and I'm going to pin a couple pins right there on the front of my neck. So I'm attaching the liner and the outer together. And again, that's right sides together. And then I'm going all the way out around the corner to the shoulder, the back shoulder, and then I'm going down the back. So I'm attaching all these, pinning them all together. All the way down my back. Well, the back of my bodice. So I'm going all the way, so I'm just matching those raw edges together and pinning all the way down. Now what we're going to do after I pin is we're going to go ahead and sew around that whole edge. Let me show you once more where I'm going. Ow! So I'm sewing all the way around this edge, all the way around the neck curve, and all the way down. Ah, I poked myself. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, serge all the way around, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Alright guys, now that I serged all the way around my bodice, as you can see, all the way around the neck and all the way around the edge. Now I'm going to turn my bodice right side out. And I am doing flutter sleeves with this dress. So that's what I'm doing. So this is what the steps that we're going to take. But if you're doing other kind of sleeves, then you would move on to the, if you're doing no sleeve, then you would move on to the other steps. So, but I'm doing sleeves. Where did I put, I just had a little handy tool to take out the, here it is, to push out the edges. So my dress is nice and sharp at the ends. So you might want to do that if you have some kind of tool. If you don't have a tool, sometimes I do like a ruler or something that has a pointy that I can just like poke out those edges. So now I'm going to go ahead and steam my dress. Okay, where I serged all the way around the neck and everything. So here it is. That nice curve right there. And the side. I'm so excited. This is for my little niece, and I know she's gonna love it. I say little, but she's not so little anymore. This is for my oldest niece. I usually sew for my little niece, so today I'm sewing for my oldest. So that will make her happy. I sew for her as well sometimes, but not as much as I sew for the little one. So now that I steamed my bodice, there it is, steamed up, ready to go. Here's the back, here's the front. Now I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the sash. I have, actually these are my ties. I already did one with this lovely satin. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm placing one of my ties down, right sides together, and I'm going to steam it right sides together. And the reason why it looks a little bit wobbly is because when I was cutting it, I didn't have the best scissors, so and as you know, that if you work with this material, it kept moving back and forth, so I had a little bit of a tough time, but there it is, right sides together. It's folded in half. I'm going to pin because I am afraid it's gonna wiggle all over the place when I try to sew it together. I'm gonna pin and I'm gonna sew together those raw edges, and then I'm gonna start at one side. I'm gonna go in and then down so that the edge of my sash is inside, and then I'll turn it right side out and steam like I did this one. This one's already finished, so I'm gonna put that one aside, and that's the next step that you need to go on, and we're gonna move on to the sash on the dress. So here's my sash, and I have folded it wrong sides together, and I have steamed it to make a crease right in the middle. So I made a crease in the middle. Now I'm gonna grab my bodice, and I'm gonna place my bodice, and I'm going to place my bodice just the outer, and with the liner, I'm gonna pull my liner away. So I just pulled it away underneath it, and I'm putting my sash right on top of my outer bodice. Okay, the outer of my bodice. And I am going to go ahead and pin that at the edge. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pin that, and then I'm going to sew my sash to my bodice at the 1/4 of an inch down from the folded side. I have my laptop right here right next to me, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm telling you correctly. It's 1/4 of the way down. So I'm gonna go from my from my folded piece, I'm gonna go down 1/4 of an inch, and that's where I'm gonna sew it on. So I'm gonna sew that sash right under the crease. So I'm not sewing the edge down at the bottom, I'm just sewing down from the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on. I have attached it, if you can see, 1/4 of the way down. Sorry, 1/4 of the way down from the crease. Now I'm going to fold it down. Now I have my ties, and I am going to place that edge, that raw edge of the tie, 1/2 inch up from the bottom, and I am going to place that right there on the side of my outer bodice, still keeping that liner out of the way. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same for the other one. Like I said, still keeping that liner out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and baste those on. Baste those on the side of my dress. So I put it on top of the bodice, the front, the outer layer of the bodice, on the edges, right on the edges, and I put it 1/2 inch away from the bottom. So that way they won't get in the way. They will be away from the sash and from the bottom hem. So when I hem it, it won't get in the way. So now I'm going to go ahead and baste them, and then we'll move on to the flutter sleeves. I basted my sashes to the side of my bodice, and now they should look just like this. They're right on top of my sash, and they're basted on the sides 1/2 inch away from the bottom. I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm doing flutter sleeves like I said, so I'm moving on to the flutter sleeve. So I've got my flutter sleeve, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my serger, and I'm going to finish the edge, the hole around the outside of the edge, where it's going to ruffle out. You can do a zigzag stitch if you like on your sewing machine. So I'm just finishing it. That way it'll be easier than doing a regular hem where you fold and then fold again. This is a lot easier. So I'm going to do this. I'm serging it, and then I'm going to fold it up 3/8 and sew it, stitch it. So I serged it, or if you want a zigzag stitch, and now I'm folding it up. And I am going to stitch that down. And I'm going to go all the way down. And then that'll be a nice hem line. And I don't have to worry about folding and then folding again, because it's such a small piece of material. And you don't want to, with woven, you don't want to leave it raw because it's going to fray everywhere. So now it's got a nice edge. Okay, so now I'm going to place, and I already did it to my other ruffles. So now I'm going to go ahead and place them on top of each other, the ruffles. Because I'm using the 2 ruffles. I'm using the longer ruffle and then obviously the smaller ruffle. Obviously, I'm using the 2 sizes. So I'm going to put them right on top of each other. And I'm going to pin it. And after I pin it, I'm going to baste them together. I'm going to baste those 2 ruffles together. And then we'll come back and put our ruffles on and move on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to baste those 2 ruffles together. All right, guys, my ruffles are basted together. What I forgot to tell you is right sides up. They're both right sides facing up, so they're both right sides up. I basted it, but you can also, I basted it, but you can also just use a gathering stitch. It's up to you. But I basted it because that's how I gather. So now I'm going to grab my bodice, and I'm going to put my armsicle right side up of my bodice, my liner, my outer, and I'm going to match up my edges of my ruffle, and I am going to, if I can get this off, I am going to pull that basting stitch and gather my ruffle just a little bit, just enough that it will match up to my bodice, all the way to my bodice, all the way around. So I'm go ahead and ruffling that flutter sleeve so it matches up to my bodice, and I am going to pin it to my bodice, to my outer, all the way around the seam, and I am doing that right sides facing each other. Okay, so I'm going from one end to the other end with my flutter, and I am going to do that, and then I'm going to I'll pin it, and then I'll sew it right on. So I'm going to serge it right on to that front bodice, and so I'm just serging where the armsicle is, flutters right sides together with my bodice and my flutter, and I gathered my flutter a little bit so it will reach all the way from one side to the other, and I'll pin it, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew it on, and then I'll do the same thing for my other flutter. Now if you are going to be doing sleeves, you move on to doing the sleeve, but I'm just doing flutters this time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on. Alright guys, look at these beautiful sleeves. Look how beautiful it looks, guys. Oh goodness, look at it. I just love it. I love it so much. So now the next step we're going to do is the burrito method. The burrito method, and I'm excited about the burrito method because sounds so scary, but it is so simple. It really isn't that scary at all. So here's my bodice, and I'm laying it on the table face up. Now I'm gonna roll this side, one side, whichever side you want to roll first. We're gonna roll it into our other side, and then I'm gonna grab the outer layer. See, I'm opening the outer layer, and here's my inner layer, and we're gonna flip it so that all my other things are tucked in. Okay, so everything is tucked into my arm except for here's my outside of my dress, of my shirt, my bodice, sorry, and then here's the inside, the liner. So here's the outer and the liner, and they're facing each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin first at the seam of the armsicle. No, that's the shoulder seam, I'm sorry. I'm pinning at the shoulder seam. So if you look at it, it's all encased in there. You can see that. And then I'm going to go all the way around, all the way out to the end of the armsicle. You can see that I'm matching up. And so my the right side of my liner and the right side of my bodice are touching. And I'm just pinning right there all the way to the out. And so it's the outside of my liner is touching the outside of my outer, but the ruffle sleeves are in there. Okay, so I'm tucking my sleeve in. I hope that's making sense. And then we'll do the other one as well, so that if you didn't get it on this one, then when I do the other one I'll show you. Okay, so now I pinned it, and it's all tucked in there like a little burrito. See, that's why it's called the burrito method. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and serge that edge together, making sure that the reason why you have to roll it real tight is because you want to make sure that all the other fabric is out of the way. All you're sewing on here is the shoulder seams together. Okay, so I went all the way around that armsicle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that out through the armhole. Here it is. It's coming out. Pull it all the way out, and then you'll see that it has been encased. There it is. That arm has been encased. The whole arm area. Okay, you see that? On here, on the other side that we haven't done yet, it's still open. But on this side has already been put together. Okay, so now let's do this side, and so we can look at it again. Okay, okay, so this is the side that's already been finished. So I'm putting it right side up. The side that's finished, I'm leaving it on this side. So here's my side that's open, still raw. And I'm going to fold this side over. So I'm rolling it, rolling it, rolling it towards my seam right here. Then I'm grabbing this shoulder, comes up, and the liner goes out and comes around. And that's where I meet the liner, right there at the top where the seam is. I hope that made sense. Here, let me do it again. Okay, so here's my liner and my casing. See, here's my outer, here's my ruffle. So when I roll this other side up, I'm basically putting it on top of my, well, let me roll it this way so that way I can roll the, there we go. So then I'm rolling it up and I'm basically putting it right on top of where that ruffle is, okay, and folding it over and bringing that other ruffle up, I mean the bodice liner up over, okay? I hope that makes sense. It's not hard at all, okay? So now I'm going all the way down to the armsicle. All the way down. And then I'm gonna go and serge this side as well. So, okay, let me go ahead and serge this side and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright guys, burrito is completed and it looks great. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew up those sides together. So I'm opening, here's my top, and I'm opening it, flipping it over my top, and here's the back. So this is the front, this is the back. I'm flipping that open where the front and the back are, and I'm meeting them together at the seam. So where the armsicles are, I'm gonna go ahead and meet those two together, right sides together at the armsicles, the armpit area. And then we're gonna go down, meeting the liner with the liner, right sides together on each side. And then we'll go down the front, or up the front, or whatever, however you want to say it. Here's the front, my outer, so I'm meeting those two together. And this is when your ribbon will get sewn in as well. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same for the other side. So here it is opened, okay? This is my front bodice, here's my back bodice. So I'm going to meet at this armsicle. Here's the armsicle, we're going to meet them together right there. And I'm going to go in, pin right here. And then I'm going to go down the front bodice. Is. And then I'm gonna go down the other side. Here it is. How cool is that? Okay, so there it is. All the way down. We're gonna serge all the way down on both sides to close those side seams. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and serge, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right guys, so I turned it right side out, and here's my side seam, all completed and all inside, so I don't even see it anymore. Isn't that great? So my top, look at my bodice, is pretty much done. All I have to do is at the end, I'll do my buttons, which my pattern has my button placement, so that's really great because then I can just place it on top and place the pattern, the buttons. But look at how cute that looks. Adorable. Okay, so there's that. We're gonna put that aside and we're gonna move on to the skirt. So the first thing I gotta do is I'm gonna grab, and now I'm only gonna do it, I'm gonna show you how to do it on the, this is my bottom skirt, but you have to do these steps on all of them, the bottom and the top. Oh, but this is the back skirt, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is, sorry, I have all this fuss. Here's my skirt, my bottom back skirt, but you have to do it on the bottom top and the bottom back. I mean the back bottom and the back top, okay? So we're gonna fold it down the middle, okay, meeting those raw edges, and I'm gonna steam right here. Careful, because this fabric is sensitive. Just enough that I can see where my crease is to create a crease, okay? And then now on that crease that I don't know if you can see or not, but I made a crease, I'm gonna cut it right down the middle, right down that crease, because I'm gonna create that fox placket. Okay, I'm cutting all the way down. I'm being very careful because this fabric is really silky. Okay, so now that I've done that, now like I said, you're gonna do this on the back bottom and the back top layer of your skirt. So but I'm just doing it on this one for now. Now that I cut it on those raw edges, I'm gonna go ahead and finish them by, I'm doing it with my serger. You can do it with a zigzag stitch. Just finish those edges. So it doesn't unravel. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish those edges so it doesn't unravel. I'll do the same one to the other side, and I'm gonna do the same one to my top pocket. So that's exactly what I'm doing to all of them. Just cutting it right down the middle and finishing those serges. So now all my sides of my top and bottom back skirt are already finished, okay? So now I'm gonna place them right sides together on top of each other, okay? And I'm gonna measure 3 inches down for my placket from the top, okay? Here's my 3 inches right here. I'm gonna mark it, and I'm gonna go all the way down and pin. And you're gonna do this for both the top layer and the bottom layer. This is my top layer I'm working on right now. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and sew those two together, just a straight line right next to the serge part, except for not where I marked the 3 inches. I'm gonna leave that one open, but I'm gonna sew right here at the other part. Sew it together. Okay, now I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to steam that seam down. Open it up and steam it down, opened. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing that all the way up those 3 inches. Open it up and steam it down, even though they're not. So you'll see that the other part is sewn together, but this part right here where I didn't, the 3 inches are still open, but the sides are still folded back just like where I sewed. So I'm gonna go ahead and steam them down a little bit better. My iron turned off, and then I'm gonna pin. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back and top stitch those sides down. So the sides that open up, I sewed it together at the bottom, so they're together, but up here at the top where the 3 inches are, it's open. So I flipped it in, my seam, I flipped it back. Now I'm gonna go back with my sewing machine, and I'm gonna stitch down, across, and up, so I can press that down, so I can top stitch that seam down. I hope that makes sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing to my bottom back skirt, okay? So we're gonna do that to both of them. All right, now that my skirt liner is done, I mean my skirt bottom is done, same liner. Now I'm going to grab my skirt top, my front, that was my back. I'm sorry. Now that my back is done and I sewed it together, here's a little placket. Now I'm going to grab my top, my front, and I'm going to put it right on top of that one and meet the seams. And I'm going to sew the seams, the side seams together. I'm going to do this to my top layer and my bottom layer. I'm going to sew the seams together so it's a continuous circle skirt. Well, it's not a circle skirt, it's just a continuous skirt panel. That makes sense? Maybe? Okay. So I'm sewing it all the way around. Okay. So now I'm going to sew that edge and then this edge down at the bottom together, and I'm going to do the same thing for my top skirt. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing now, and then we'll move on. All right, now that both of my skirts are on, the sides are sewn, they're all inside out right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck my short top layer in my skirt, my long layer, so that the right side of my longer layer is touching the wrong side of my shorter layer, my top layer. And then I'm going to meet them at the raw edges, and I'm going to pin them together, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste them together. Because the next step will be, after I baste them together, the next step will be to gather them to the width of the skirt, of the bodice, and then I'm going to sew them on. Now, if that's what you're doing, if you're just going to do the woven, and this is the part where you would you'll end up doing a gathering stitch, and you'll end up sewing it right to the bodice. So you can, that's what we'll do next. But I'm a little extra, and I'm going to go with I'm going to add a little bit of tulle to my skirt. So if this is what you're doing, just the woven, you would put these two together as I'm doing right now. You would baste them together. Okay, let me pin it all the way so I can show you. So you pin them all the way. You would baste them together, the top and the bottom layer. Okay, then you would grab your, you would run a gathering stitch, and you would gather the skirt as wide as your bodice. So you put your bodice right on top, right here, and you can measure how wide it is. So it's about this is about double the width. So you would gather it to the width of the bodice, okay? And then we would attach it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the tulle version. So I'm not gonna do it this way, but this is the way you would do it if it was woven. Now with the tulle, I'm gonna have to add the tulle to the skirt. Ooh, I'm kind of scared. So if you're doing the tulle, we're gonna move on and do that. But if you're doing the woven, this is what you're doing. This is the step. Skip the tulle step, and then we'll attach it, because you're gonna attach it the same way. When I attach the tulle after I attach the tulle to the skirt, then we're gonna attach it to the bodice the same way. So we'll move on and do that. All right, guys. So now I have my skirt all set up, my liner, and so if you wanna, this is the portion we're gonna work on if I'm doing tulle. So I just have to use the bottom liner. Because with the tulle, I'm gonna do the top. So here's my tulle, and what I did is I have 2 layers of 4 times the width of the skirt. So it's actually 2 because it's on the fold. So it's 2 and 2, so it's 4, if that makes any sense. But I have 2 layers of it, so I'm gonna put them on top of each other. And what we're gonna do first is I'm going to gather the skirt. So I'm going to do a long stitch over it, and that's how I'm going to gather this tulle. And we're going to gather it to the size of the bodice, the size of the bodice. So that's how gathered it's going to be. And I think the worst part about working with tulle is actually figuring out where it's at, because it's so flimsy, it moves around. So I'm just trying to meet the 2 edges, the 2 raw edges together. That way when I sew them together, they're actually together and not moving around. So I'm pinning it all over, all the way down, and then I'm going to do that long stitch. That's gonna be gathering stitch. Okay, so I'm almost there. Hopefully it doesn't come apart again and then I have to do it all over again. You know, tool. So yeah, this is what I'm doing, and it looks like I cut one a little bit shorter than the other. So I am going to go ahead and, I guess I'll do it with these ones. I'm gonna go ahead and trim that edge right there real quickly, because it doesn't really matter if it has a little bit of an edge. I don't know where I put my other scissors, so I'm using this little scissor, so it's taking me forever. Almost there, I promise. Okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sorry guys. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a long stitch. That's how I do my gathers. So it's just a long stitch, and then that way I do pull a little bit out first on the back of my like a tail, and here I go. And it's gonna go all the way down. And I'm doing, this is my top layer of the skirt, but I'm gonna do the same thing to the back layer. Moving that pin out of the way. And making sure that the two layers are together. I don't know. You don't have to do 2 layers. I wanted to do 2 layers because I want a full tutu style skirt at the bottom. So that's why I'm doing 2 layers of it. 1 layer would be a lot easier, but you know. Especially when we're doing it together, I like to go above and beyond. Alright, so here's my gather tool, and I'm going to gather it. So here's my bodice, which I'm in love with, and I want to make sure that my tool is the same. It's already gathered. When I do my stretch stitch, it kind of gathers a little bit because of this, I don't know if it's this the tool, so it already gathered a little bit, so now I just have to gather just a tiny bit more. Okay. So I will gather it at the same width as the bodice. Almost the same width. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same to my bottom layer of tulle, which I have right here. So let me go ahead and do that. Gather this to the same length width as the bodice. And I'll do the same thing. I'm going to attach them to and gather it to the same width of the bodice. And then we'll move on to the next part, which is putting it together and then put it in on top of the line. Okay, now I have my skirts. They're both gathered. So the next step is to sew them together. Sew it around like a continuous circle. So now that it is gathered the width of the bodice, I'm going to grab the 2 sides, the ends, and I am going to match those together. And I have 4 layers, so you have to make sure that all the layers are matched together right here. And I'm going to measure down from the top. I'm going to measure 3 inches because that's going to be my placket, so it matches up with my placket on my skirt liner, so that the kiddos can hop in there. If not, then first time they try to put it on, it's gonna rip because this is woven. And I'm gonna sew from the pin down to the end. Well, I'm going in reverse. I'm sewing from the end to the pin, but actually, let me go from the pin to the pin down. That will be easier. And I'm just doing a regular straight stitch right here. Straight stitch. Making sure all my layers are caught. Now with this one is shorter, a shorter layer. So it was okay not to pin it. But with my longer skirt, my bottom one, I did pin it just to make sure they're all together. So here it is, and here's the bottom part. And so I have this little 3-inch opening, And I'm going to do the same thing that I did to my liner. I'm going to fold it out, open it up, fold the edges out or in to the inside of the skirt, and I'm going to sew around that to make like a little placket. Same things, just a straight stitch, and I'm sewing down with my needle down and turn, with my needle down and turn. And this is the one thing, you know, tulle can be as annoying as it wants to be, but this is the one part where tulle is very forgiving because you won't really be able to see it that much. So now I'm going to turn it, that was the wrong side. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it right side out. So that way, let me turn it. Okay, that's wrong side out. This is right side out. Okay, here we go. All right, so I've got that. Now, I went ahead already and also the same way, I did the same thing to my bottom skirt with the little placket. And then my liner, I went ahead and already gathered it the same way. Now, what I forgot to do is to hem it. So the way that I'm going to hem this, because of this this woven and phrase, I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to finish it with my serger. So I'm going to give it a finished edge. And you can do that either with your serger or whatever with zigzag stitch. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to go ahead and that raw edge, I'm just serging it. Now, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. You can do just a hem, fold over, will be fine. Also, if you're doing tulle on top of it, you actually don't even have to if you just do the serger and you feel like that's good enough for you and you want to leave it just the serge edge because the tulle is going to be on top of it, so you really won't be able to see it as long as you're tucking that tail. You can go ahead and do that. It's up to you. So if you tuck in that tail and you just want to leave it just like that for the bottom, you can do that, or you can go a step farther and fold it up and steam it and then do a hem. It's really up to you. Okay, so that's up to you what you want to do. You can leave it like this, or you can fold it up a ½ inch and do the hem on there. So after you do that, I'm just leaving it like this for now. If I decide to go back and fix it, then I'll do that. But here's my bottom skirt, my liner. And then I'm going to grab my liner, my bottom top skirt, and I'm going to line it up with my other skirt. So the right side of my skirt is touching the wrong side of my tulle, and I'm lining up that placket. See here where it is? I'm lining them together with the bodice, with the liner. And like I said, I already went ahead and gathered my liner, so they both should be the same width. Okay? So I'm pinning it. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with my top skirt. With my top skirt, I'm going to put it right on top of this. So either you can, here I'm just spinning. You can just spin if you want, or you can go ahead and, if it's easier, because it's going to get a little difficult once I go put the other layer on. It might get a little difficult because tulle is a little bit funny, and I'm using tulle and satin, so double the trouble. Just call me crazy, but I think I love it. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and put the other layer on. Like I said, sorry, I don't think I finished my thought. Anyway, you can go ahead, if you want, you can go ahead and do a stitch on top of this, a long stitch all the way around. just to put these two together, so, and then add this one on top. But I just pinned it, and I think it's good enough, because now I'm gonna add the top one, matching up the placket as well, because we did one on this one too. Matching those up. And now that they are matched up, I'm going to make sure they're all together. So all my edges together. So I'm going to pin the junk out of this skirt. I'm going to pin them both, all three layers together. And then I'm going to go around the top and sew them together. So I'm going to do I'm going to stitch them together first. And then if you want, after you sew that top raw edge together, you can go ahead and give it a serged edge at the top, so that way it's easier to get onto your skirt. But first, I'm going to go ahead and sew it together. That way I can make sure my gathers are even, put it on top of my bodice, make sure it's lining up correctly, is the width I want. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it and sew it, and then we'll come back and then I'll show you how I'm going to serge it and all that stuff. Alright guys, now I sewed these together. All my layers are sewn together. Now, to finish that edge right there and not have it so bulky when I'm trying to attach it to my bodice, I'm going to go ahead and just on that edge, I'm going to go ahead and serge them all together. All those layers of tulle and satin dress, because that way I have just an even edge and I don't have to worry about all the bulk and such of the pleats, of the gathers. Now remember, when you are sewing this together, you need to be very careful that you're not catching any of the tulle or the skirt on the underside, because then that's not bueno, not good. So you want to make sure that you're constantly paying attention to the bottom of the skirt, that you're not catching it wrong. As you can see, some of the tulle got out. I cut some of the tulle because some of the length of the tulle is, when I was attaching it, it's like longer or whatever. But now look at it. It's all even. So that's really good, because now when I go to attach it to my bodice, it will be even Steven. I won't have to worry about it being, crazy. Anyway, so we will move the liner out of the way, and we're just going to attach it to our front, or why do I keep forgetting the word, the top outer layer? There you go. Okay, so we're gonna attach it to the outer layer, and it's gonna go right sides together. So what I'm gonna do is, you can either tuck in your turn your skirt wrong side out like this, or tuck in your dress in there. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna do this, and I'm going to go this way. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Okay, here's my outer, and I'm going to pin it at the edge of my skirt. So see, it comes all the way to the edge. I'm going to start pinning, and I'm going to go all the way around, and they're right sides together. My skirt and my outer layer of dress. Remember, you're only pinning it to the main part. And you can match up those side seams. Side seam of the skirt with the side seam of the bodice. Then you keep going. Now remember, don't catch the back of the skirt. You're just catching the front. Where is my side seam? Trying to find my side seam so I can match that up. You can go ahead and match that first if you want. Side seam. And also, you got to remember to keep the sashes out of the way. Now, this is the part where it comes in handy when we first put on the sashes, and I told you to put them just like, I think it was a ½ an inch down. I can't remember if it was ½ an inch or 1/4 of an inch. I can't really remember right now, but remember I told you to put it down the sash. That way, now that you're gonna sew this on, you have a little bit of space, okay? So that you don't catch the sash. catch the sash. Okay, so here I am. I'm pinning all this around, and I would take my time pinning it because you want to be careful that you don't catch a layer you don't want to catch. Okay, and we're almost there. If you want to go ahead and tuck in your shirt, your bodice into your skirt, you can go ahead and do that. So it's all in there. My bodice is in there. And I'm going all the way around to the edge. Remember, once again, you are not catching your liner. You're just doing your outer layer. Your liner is going to come on top, and we're going to top stitch. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that later, because that's going to cover all these seams, so you don't have all these nasty seams showing on the inside of your dress. That makes this so totally cool. All right, so now my skirt is all pinned together, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch my skirt to my outer layer of dress. So I'm just serging. You can stitch. Remember, make sure that comes right to the edge of the liner. Make sure you're catching both fabrics. I say both, even though we know that there's a million layers underneath there. There's tulle, there's satin, there's all kinds of stuff, a little bit for everyone. But I'm making sure that it catches it as I'm sewing it along. Don't want my the one reason why I like to, it's cool that it's trapping it in there, is that I don't want my tool to come up, so you want to make sure that everything's kind of out of the way. And it's catching on there. Hoping mine is all catching. Don't you hate it sometimes you get to the end of your project and you're doing so well and you're like, yes, girl, I'm almost done. And then you get to the end and sometimes you do something. Yes, that happens to me sometimes. I hope it happens to somebody else. Not because I want it to happen to you, but it's like maybe I'm not the only one who makes those little mistakes at the end of a project. When everything has gone so well and everything feels so right, and all of a sudden you're like, you make a hole with your serger or something. Why? Like, why? But we're almost there. My neck is itching. You know why? Because I just thought of something. Because I was an overachiever and I chose woven. You know what that means, right? You know what we got coming. I mean, we finished our dress. And if you chose knit, you're basically done. Alright, so here we go. Oh, here we go. Told you. One part did not catch. That's okay. I'm going to go back in. That wasn't as bad as some of the other things I've done before. Didn't catch. I can do it. Just fix it. Just make sure I catch it. That's not too bad. Okay. Let's see. Dress is looking gorgeous. Look at that. It's so cute. It's looking so cute. Oh my gosh. You think it fit me? You think it would fit me and I could wear it? Okay, here we go. We're almost done. Look at that. How cute is that? How adorable. Okay, now, so, like I told you, my inner layer, I haven't done anything to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it up because it's got that raw edge. And let me go ahead and turn this inside out so you can see it better. Now in this step you have to be kind of careful that you don't catch any of that precious tulle or any of that stuff, because like I said, like I was saying earlier, you don't want to get to the end and then destroy your look. Why is it that when I get nervous I get an accent? I don't need an extra accent. I already have an accent. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm folding it down. I'm folding it up, in, and I'm gonna pin it all the way around, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna top stitch, and this layer this liner is gonna cover my line, my serging line thing, my thread seam. My goodness. I could give the excuse that English is my second language, which it is my second language, but I've spoken English for most of my life, so that's not really an excuse. Then I could say mommy brain, because you know I have a child, but I mean my son is 7, so I mean, do you have mommy brain still when your son is 7 years old? I don't know. Okay, so I'm going all the way around. Here's the front, and I am just folding that over my seam, I remember this time, and pinning it down to my seam, because then I'm going to top stitch this seam, this liner onto my skirt, and that way I'll have a seamless inside of my dress, so it'll look beautiful. Because what kid wants these seams poking at them when they're trying to wear their beautiful dress? Not I. And I'm not even a kid, and I don't want that. You know? Almost there. Okay. So now that I've done all the way around, not really, but I'm gonna say I did. Ugh, I just poked myself. We're gonna go ahead and top stitch that whole thing. What I've done before, if you want to do this, it's really helpful, but I don't feel like doing it tonight, so I might regret it. But what I've done before, I've used some of that. You can do glue, fabric glue, or you can do, I have this stuff right here, double-sided tape, whatever you call it, fabric tape. And I will use that sometimes, and it actually helps it stay, so that way when, and it's wash away, so it'll wash whenever I wash my dress, it'll come off. So that way it'll keep it. Now I'm making sure. Okay, so I pinned it all the way around, as you can see. Now I'm going to turn it right side out, because I want to make sure, I want to look and make sure that I didn't catch my tool when I was pinning it. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? I do not want to catch my tool, and then I'll have, like, after I do it, and I'll have like a piece of tool sticking up at the front that is like caught on my thing and ruin my dress. Anyway, alright, so it looks like I did alright, so I'm going to go ahead and top stitch that. Just a top stitch line. You can do it with your the cover stitch, or with your machine, your sewing machine, whatever you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we've got buttons coming up. I am so scared of buttons. You not understand. I dread buttons. I love woven. I hate buttons. But we're going to do that together. I'm going to show you how I do one of my buttons. My sewing machine is actually, I don't know why I'm scared, because my sewing machine is actually really good with buttons. But I know there's different ways of doing them. So, but anyway, we can do it. We can do it. Alright, I'm going to go top stitch this, and then we'll move on. Alright guys, so I top stitched my dress, and it's looking beautiful. Look at that. Oh, it's going to look so cute on. Okay, so I did that. Now to the threaded buttons. Okay, it's not really putting the buttons on, it's the buttonholes that scare me. But I've already made 4 of the buttonholes. That was painful. Okay, but here's some tips. Now, every sewing machine is different and does different things with the buttonhole. So you might have like an attachment that you put on your sewing machine. You might have just your foot that you put on your sewing machine. My sewing machine actually has the foot that goes with it, but it's got already like a stitch for my buttons, so buttonholes, I'm sorry. So all I really need to do is figure out how long I want my button. So I want to grab my button and see what button I'm using, and figure out how wide you need your buttonhole to be. So I'm figuring it out, and it's 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna measure that. Now the pattern, really cool thing about the pattern is it tells you where to place your buttons, obviously. And so I went ahead and already did that and placed my marker there telling me where it's gonna go. So I'm going to measure, I already measured, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it on here. And I use some fabric chalk, or you can use pen or whatever it is that will work best for you. The reason why I use fabric chalk actually really is because I got a lot of stuff I inherited, and I have a huge box of chalk. So obviously I'm going to use it. Same with my pins. I'm just going to use what I have. But that's the great thing about sewing. You can just kind of grab whatever you have and use it. So anyway, so I marked my button area where my buttonhole is going to go. I already switched to my foot, and I already have it set on my machine. So I don't have a lot of tips to give you on that, except for look up your machine manual and see what your machine can do. Because like I said, different machines do it differently. But just make sure that you always have to measure the button, make sure that it's the right width, because you don't want to have a hole that's too big, and when you put the button in, it it's too big and it comes off easily or whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I measured it, I marked it. I'm gonna go ahead and sew it. Another thing is take it slow as you're sewing that button, because if you pull it and then the gap is too big, okay? Then after I do that, I use one of my rotary cutters, and I don't know if you don't have rotary cutters, you should get some. This is my really tiny one, and when I go ahead and open that buttonhole really slowly, so I don't cut any of the threads. So that's how I do that. And then I will do the same thing with my pattern guide, and I will mark my back of my other side of my back, and I will place my button where it shows me on my mark, so that way when I put it together they match up. And I didn't do it yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and then I'll take a picture and show you guys how cool it looks. But other than that, we are done with our dress. Look at that. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to sew that button hole up so I can show you what I do. But like I said, all different sewing machines are different, so it will be different on yours. So now I've got my foot in there, and I place it right where I want my buttonhole to go, and I lower my needle to make sure that it's right at the right spot where my chalk mark is, and I take it slow because I want to make sure that it's good and covered. I don't want to rush it and then it's got a thin layer. Now with my machine, I actually push the reverse button, and it just goes back to the other side of the button. So I'm the one who actually measures the button, not my machine. And actually, I don't know, I'm sure there probably is a way to put in there how big of a button you're doing, and it does it by itself. I don't know how to, so I just do it by hand, which is probably the reason why. You know, a lot of times I think we're so scared because we feel like, oh, we can't do it. And then when we actually end up doing it, it really isn't that scary, because this is not even scary at all. But I'm just cutting my threads. But there it is. There's that buttonhole, if you can see it right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut with my rotary cutter right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and on the other side, mark my buttons. And I hand stitch my buttons on. So I don't know how you do it, but I hand stitch them on. And we are done. We're done with the dress. I will get a picture. Maybe I'll come back on here. And if you want to see a picture of my dress, I usually post it on Facebook or on Instagram. So when you sew yours up, we love to see it on the Ellie and Mac Facebook page or Instagram page. We love to see all that you do. Please let me know if you have any questions. Look, this would be so cute and adult size. Let me know if you have any questions about anything I did or anything I used. Or if you have any tips for me with some of the stuff that I used for the first time, because I wasn't really sure about everything. So I love to hear from you, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and hope this was helpful to someone out there. And I hope you guys have a great night. Look, I'm wearing my dress. It's so cute. Yay! All right, guys, you guys have a good night. Bye.